Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Recovery Scene. I'm your host, Leslie. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and like. We greatly appreciate both of those things. Tonight I have Megan Racer with us. I'm very excited for her to tell her story because I think a lot of moms who have gone through addiction are going to really relate to this. Megan kind of started her addiction around 18. It didn't get bad till she was about 21. And what really pushed her to start the road to recovery was CPS and the fight for her kids. You know, not an uncommon story, and yet they're all different. So I am, as usual, going to let our guests take the floor. Megan, thank you so much for being here and, just being willing to share your story and being vulnerable and helping others, basically.
Thank you. Oh man, where do I even start? So I guess I'll just start kind of with my introduction to drugs and alcohol. Alcohol was just a very common thing growing up. It was something that was always around, and it was something I was allowed to do, and I engaged in it quite often. My parents were out of town a lot, so we had a lot of house parties, and there's just a thing that was always there. The drug aspect was kind of there, but I don't know, I was very shy to enter that world. I knew how addicted I had been to certain things, so I wanted to stay away from that. And then, so I did really well in high school, got pretty good grades, went to Arizona State University for criminal justice, and I did pretty well doing that. That's kind of when my drug problem started, though. So I was a college student, and I was also using opiates at the same time. The person that I had started dating at 18, he introduced me to, cocaine. He introduced me to opiates as well. And that's where it really, really, really took off. I don't know. I remember specifically the first time I did a line, I just remember thinking like, wow, that was amazing. Like, where has this been my entire life? I
found the answer.
I know, I swear, like I found the answer. This is what I needed. Like, cause I guess growing up, I hated myself. I was a very sad little girl. And, I grew up with body dysmorphia, and that kind of like took over my whole life. And I didn't go out much, and I didn't do a whole lot of things. And I really had a lot of self-loathing and, kind of the victim mentality a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's a very common theme among addicts is not being comfortable in our own skin. And then we find something that magically makes that go away.
Right. It seemed like the solution, I thought that was the solution to my problem because I just didn't know. I didn't have any coping skills. I knew how to cry, and I knew how to isolate myself. And I just thought I was special in a way I'm so special. I'm so bad that's how special I am,
Right.
Nobody can relate to how bad I am.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of time to reverse that thinking, because that's the thinking I had as a child, and that's the thinking I grew up with as an adult. So my addiction got pretty bad when I met my children's father. He and I both kind of dabbled in things, but it wasn't so bad to where our lives were completely destroyed. I was in my senior year of college, and we both just started getting heavy into opiates. And then I got pregnant with our daughter, and I had to stop. It was really challenging, abusing opiate prescription drugs and trying to not do it anymore. So after I had my daughter, I just was I didn't want to do it anymore, but I kind of did. And I knew he had switched over to a harder drug. So I decided, I think 5 months after I had my daughter, to start using with him. And that was just a crazy, crazy, crazy world.
Yeah, that's difficult when two people, feeding into each other are together.
Right. We made amazing kids, right? But we just, we're not two good people together. We're very toxic together. Very, very toxic. So that's when that first CPS case started. I had tested positive, and they, initiated a case.
Now,
I
what
ended
made them test you in the first place?
So my my children's father's dad called CPS. And so he, at that point, had driven back to Missouri. I guess with he and I, there's a lot of him going away, right? Doesn't stay very long. And so at that time, he had just driven to Missouri. He had also tested positive. So we both had a case open. I decided that I wanted sobriety, and I went into recovery and did initially what I needed to do. He and I hadn't talked for a long time, and then one day we met up and made our son. So
Aha.
Yeah, it wasn't something that was, planned or anything like that, but it happened, and he's a blessing. And so I was 6 months sober when I got pregnant with our son, and this case is still going on. And I would say it was the 5th of May of 2015. Their dad tried to kill himself. And he was unsuccessful, so he decided that he was going to go back to Missouri at this point, because he was in Arizona, and just completely cut off all connection at that point. I got my daughter back. We reunified all of that, and I had my son, and I was sober, and I was enjoying life. It was very challenging trying to raise 2 kids and work and do all of that, but and I had an amazing support group and just community of sober people. It was really amazing time in my life. I have a lot of amazing memories from those times, but I just I wanted my kids to know their dad, and I felt it necessary to reach out to him all the time. I would leave him messages, call him, let him know, like, I would really like you to meet your son. Your daughter misses you, things like that. And eventually, I think a year and a half later, he came back, and that started the cycle of craziness again. I was like 2 years, 3 months sober, and I relapsed on alcohol with him. And, then he brought pills home one day. So I relapsed on that too. And
right. And that's how toxic relationships work.
Right.
Once you get two elements back together, they just kind of explode.
Absolutely. Like, things were fine for, the first couple of months, and then it just all started. It wasn't like we were together. I had a place, and he would sleep on the couch, and if I needed to go to work, he would be there. And that's like ultimately what I wanted. I just went about it in the wrong way. And I can't force somebody to want to be a father. So
right.
that
Keep it clean.
No, none of it.
Right.
None of it. So we switched back to our drug of choice again. I remember I was at work. I was working for the court system at the time. And I walk into the house, and he's like, "Hey, I need you to come back to the bathroom." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And we go back to the bathroom. He opens my medicine cabinet, and there it is. And I was just like, "Oh, okay." I mean, at this point, I had already relapsed. So I'm already in that mode of like, well, I don't care now. Like, I already relapsed.
Right. Like, I may as well go all the way,
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
None of that chaos that was in my life before was at the front of my mind in that moment. It was all like, oh, this is going to be great. Like, this will be fine. We can totally control it this time. It's not going to be bad.
Absolutely. This is a great idea.
Right. Yep. But it was completely awful. It was so bad. It was, I switched to IV using at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasted for 2 years. That one decision completely destroyed everything in my life.
Right. Now, was his dad still involved at this point, or had he kind of?
So his dad, they had a weird relationship. And I had kind of a weird relationship with his dad. Like, his dad and I communicated a lot, and at this time he wasn't communicating with his dad because his family was kind of upset with him again for leaving. That was, like I said, like a common thing that he did, was just he left. He's a great father when he wants to be, and then he leaves. So,
and that might be the most heartbreaking thing.
Right. Because my son doesn't know him, but I know my daughter knows him, and I know how much she loves him. and what a great just relationship they had.
Right.
And so
And
I
I
know
don't want to
it's possible.
too much, but it almost sounds like he's definitely got mental illness happening, and he's
Oh, yeah.
self-medicating.
He's ADHD, and my son's ADHD too, and he's also bipolar. So there is a lot of unmedicated mental health issues going on, and you know, I know he has the ability to medicate himself because I've seen him do it, but
yeah,
he definitely makes a choice to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs. I don't know anymore. I haven't communicated with him in years, so a couple years. So I think he was with us for probably almost a year, and then he left again. I was still in my active using. I had moved back with my mom. I'm still working for the court system. And
how wild is that? I mean, right. You are working for the court system, Megan.
So yeah, should I get into that one?
Probably.
So
now we're all like, and
right. And yeah. So I worked for the clerk of court. I was I worked in the courtroom. I worked around the judges. I was basically the person that sits by the judge, and you know, if I need to take notes, I take notes. I worked the schedule, like if there was something that needed to be scheduled, whatever, and a lot of other things like create orders and whatnot. So that was my job, and you know, I did it coming off of drugs, and I did it on drugs, and I did it as a complete mess. I was an absolute mess, and I don't know how I worked for how long I did within that particular job, because you know, my day consisted of like getting my kids up super early to drop them off at daycare, which I was normally withdrawing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I would drive to work, try to work that first, you know, part of my shift, and then it would be going and getting my drug. And
right. The fact that you were that functional is kind of mind-blowing.
Right. I don't know. You see, I guess you like, that's the thing though, like when you're a mom, like people, they just don't understand, I guess, and they think it's selfish, and I get it. Like I understand people don't understand addiction, but when you're a mom, you don't really have a choice. So if you have to take care of your kids and you have to feed your habit, like you have to do what you have to do regardless. Like, and that means, you know, being to work on time, being sick, like it means going to work, being sick, it means picking your kids up, being sick, and like getting, you know, your drug, and right. Figuring out and manipulating people and manipulating situations to make that happen so you can continue on with your day. It's just right. Like the most chaotic, and this is just the most chaotic thing.
Teaching moment for those who are listening on live, or for those who are watching the episode when it airs. It's not a choice.
No.
It's a disease. The brain chemistry changes because no mother, okay, and I'm talking about good, loving mothers, you know, who have, you know, the second a child is born, there is no other love that you can't explain unless you have ever given birth and become a mother. No mother is going to choose addiction over her children.
Right.
And this is in no way, you know, for the children of addicts. This does not excuse behavior. This does not excuse, you know, if your parents disappear for days on end, or if they're, you know, they become abusive when they're high, or anything, you know, it doesn't excuse it, but it is absolutely a disease, a disorder. It's a mental health problem. All the way.
I completely agree, because there's no way I would have just done all of this and been, I wasn't okay with what I was doing. And you know, the thing when you get sober is you have to relive those moments. I mean, my brain chooses to relive those moments, right? And it's my choice to be like, no, that happened, like I'm moving on from those, and I definitely do. But like I'm never going to forget the person that I was in active addiction. It's just, I can't forget the person I was in active addiction, because then my ego will be like, oh, you can do this again. It's fine. You'll be totally fine. But there's no way. tried to be a mom, and I tried to be in active addiction too, and it destroyed me. I was completely lost, and it was very challenging. You know, it was one of the hardest things I've had to go through, and it's made one of the biggest impacts of my life because of how challenging it was, I guess, or whatever traumas occurred during that time. And so getting sober, it's like, oh, I gotta do some work on that then. Like I've got to look at all of this and
figure
right.
something
out. But I guess a work story. So I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how I maintained my job there, and I don't know how they didn't fire me, but there was one day that, you know, I was tired. So my drug was a downer, and I also did uppers because, you know, I needed something to balance me out so I could function, and I didn't have it that day. So I was really tired, and we get like 15-minute breaks. So I took one of my 15-minute breaks. I go out to the parking garage, and it probably takes 5 minutes just to get to where my car is. And I sit in my car, and I pass out. I fell asleep for an hour, and my boss and her boss come walking up to my car, knock on my window, and we're like, what's going on? What are you doing? And they're like, you need to follow us. So both of them are in front of me. We're all walking back together. The most embarrassing moment of my life. And
it's like going to the principal's office.
Right. Oh yeah. So I go to her office, and she's like, well, what's going on? I said, you know, I'm just super depressed. I have a lot on my plate. And they knew about some of my issues with my child's father. And my boss was like, well, I'm not saying you have to, but you should take FMLA time off. And so they're like, you need to go to the doctor. The doctor needs to sign off on this, and you can take time off. So I convinced the doctor, like, yes, I'm depressed. And he was like, yeah, you seem like you are. I think that's what's going on. I'm like, yeah, that's what's going on. And, you know, I took time off. I took like a month and a half off from work, but I didn't get help. Kept going.
Right. You know? Now you were just, you know, you had more time.
Oh yeah. I was so excited. I was like, I have all this free time to go do what I want to do now. And all I wanted to do was get high. But yeah, so I think 6 months after that, 6 months maybe, I quit my job. I quit. I cashed out my 401k, and I didn't go back. I lived off of that for a little while, and then my life started to get really crazy, and my kids were with me the whole way through it. You know, like when I say crazy, I mean like just unstable. They were still going to school. They were still, you know, doing whatever life, but internally and just how I expected my life to be, it was just chaotic. And then I think April, May, June. So 4 months after I quit my job, I was federally indicted and arrested and sent to a detention facility. And
now, how did all that come about? Because you did a TikTok on this, I believe.
I don't like talking about my crime. I don't want to get in too much into detail. You know what I mean? Because number one, I don't want to glorify what I was doing. Right. And I don't need to get into it. I just don't know, as far as like people that I was associated with. I'm no longer associated with those people. So
Right, that's fine. Okay, so you
and
you got and clearly it wasn't tiny, and you got in big trouble.
Right, yeah. I was indicted with transport and distribution.
Okay.
So yeah, I lost a lot of money for some people, basically. So
gotcha. Yeah. And then, so I'm assuming did CPS step back in?
No.
Oh wow.
No, I don't. Amazing. Right. No, CPS was not. But so I was arrested, and I was in a federal detention facility in Yuma. They sent me up to Florence, which is in Arizona, which was close to where I was at. And they transferred my case over here. I was let out to go to treatment for 4 months, and I was out with my family for 3. And then I was sentenced to prison. you know? It's weird being on pretrial because it's like life is continuing and you're involved in everybody's life, but you're awaiting this sentence. Like,
Right.
like I knew the inevitable was going to happen. You know, my attorney's like, there's just no way with how much you had and all of this, there's just no way you're not going to prison. And so for like, what was it, for 7 months, it's just like, hey, you're gonna go soon. And the days leading up to it were the worst.
Right. Right.
Definitely the worst. The day that yeah. The day that I had to go get sentenced, that was probably the hardest day. But yeah, because I don't know, when it comes to the feds, that you don't necessarily know how much time you're going to get, and it can be a little kind of like a mind game that they play.
Right.
You know, they're like, you could possibly get all the way up to like 7 years, or you know, like you could
2 days. It's like, oh, great, thanks.
Right. Like, okay. Like, we're suggesting 33 months, but you could possibly get 7 years. And I was like, oh. So I ended up getting a 30-month sentence, which, you know, if I were in any other state other than Arizona, I probably would have been serving 10 years.
Right. Right. Especially with the no tolerance law. Did they change that recently? Or they're still trying to, one or the other, but yeah, you can immediately go to, no matter what you've got, no matter how much, if you're intent to distribute, 10 years.
Right.
Crazy.
Right. Because each charge carried 10 years.
Right.
So that was, you know, and here's the sad part about my spiritual connection to my higher power. I was so in tune with my higher power during this entire time. And just, I was really like, I put myself in the middle of the program and I reached out and I leaned on people. And, you know, my life was great at that point. Like, emotionally, I felt great. I did have like my downs because I was sad. Like, I was going to leave my family, but I felt connected, and I had a great connection with my higher power. But that was because my life was absolutely and utterly chaotic. You know, the less control I believe I have, the more I reach out to my higher power. And then as like sobriety sets in and I have a couple years, it's like my ego comes back into play and my mind tricks me to think like I have this control of my life, when, you know, I've already learned that there are very few things I actually have control over.
Right.
So, but at that time, you know, I felt this just crazy connection to the people around me and to my higher power, and things just were working for me. You know, I had people believing in me, and I didn't have to manipulate them to do that. And it was pretty awesome. Things just were easy, you know, and even going to prison, it was like, okay, like, this is what I meant to do. There's a drug program there and I'm going to get in. And as soon as I went to prison, I got in. Right. You know, things just fell into place. And I find that now that I'm out, I've been out of prison since March of last year, I'm fighting against it. I've been fighting against a lot of things, and it has made my life a lot more emotionally challenging, right? Things on the outside look good. Like, I have a great job. I have my kids. You know, I found somebody that I could genuinely be in love with, but emotionally, I was just like so up and down crazy.
Right. I mean, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't gone to prison just by sheer luck.
Right. It took 10 years. Okay. It took me 10 years to get there, man.
Lord. Yeah, somehow. But they say that re-entry, like, whether you've been there a year or 20, you have to go through re-entry, and re-entry isn't just about finding a job and finding someplace to live and et cetera, et cetera. It's your life is completely different.
Absolutely.
A certain way for all this time, you know, and you know, it seems weird to say, but if you're, you know, doing what you're supposed to be doing, your life kind of has a structure in prison. You know, nothing's changed when you get out. You know, the plug is still there, you know, and the billboards still advertise and everything else. And it's like, I have to deal with life. You know, nothing stopped because I wasn't here.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be hard. That's got to be hard.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I struggle with isolation. It's one of my big defects. And so when I went to prison, I have a hard time trusting people, and I wasn't about to do that in prison. So, I guess that's a lie. I didn't trust the majority, but I trusted like one woman there who I actually formed a romantic relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else, they were just kind of there. I could literally disassociate myself from everybody else that was there, except for that one person. And I just disconnected from reality, I guess. So when you go in, if you live outside of prison and you're in prison, your life is miserable. It's absolutely miserable, you know? So I literally just had to disconnect my emotions and my feelings from my outside world. Yes, my family visited me a lot because I was really, really close to where my family was. And it was like a 30-minute drive for them to get there. And I saw my children a lot and I communicated with people, but emotionally I just wasn't there. It's almost like being on drugs, like you're just emotionally disconnected. So I guess I have that ability on drugs or off drugs, emotionally being, maybe I was emotionally stunted, I don't know. But so getting out was a challenge, you know. Even coming home was a challenge. I fell right back into the mom role, which was really hard, as soon as I got home, and trying to like fit in with my family, because they, like you said, they've been living their lives this entire time. I've been somewhere else. I've literally, you know, my mom took care of my kids while I was locked up, so she's got to be this surrogate mom, and
Right.
that was really hard on her, and my kids had to adjust to my mom being their surrogate, right? And so coming back into the family, it was like this unit has already been okay without me, right?
Right. It's been established.
Where do I fit in?
Yeah.
So it's taken a little time to figure out where I fit in, and really gain the trust of my daughter back and my son. I know they're younger. My daughter's 8, my son's 5, but I hurt them, right? I hurt them a lot by leaving, and it was very confusing for them, even to explain like why I had to leave and, you know, what happened and all of that.
Right. Like as a mother, I'm feeling that in my chest. I'm
Right.
feeling that in my chest. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so I just let my kids talk to me, like if there's something my daughter needs to say, and I'm hoping that like once COVID, once we're able to go places and whatnot, I want to get them back into some therapy and really do some mom and son therapy and mom and daughter therapy, and have them do their own individual therapy as well.
Yeah.
I would
very,
like to,
very wise. Yeah.
right, I want them to know that they can completely open up to me and talk to me about how I hurt them, because I did. And I've had to work through a lot of that shame. That's like the one thing I guess that still sticks with me after everything I've done, and is that shame piece of I didn't give them the mom they deserved. You know, they're just two amazing little humans, and I deprived them of a mom a good majority of their lives, even though I was there.
Right.
You know?
You were there, but you weren't present mentally, and yeah. I understand. I understand. Luckily, like I said, I had a husband who stuck with me, and so it was, and my children luckily came along later in my life, and so, but yeah, it's still, whether they're, it's funny because it doesn't matter if they're little. People say, oh, they're little, they'll get over it. Yeah, but I won't.
Right.
You know what I mean? So all we can do is, okay, but here I am now, and you're going to be that mom now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have to, because for me, one of my another defect is that like negative self-talk. And that's something that I thought everybody did. I just assumed that people told themselves awful things every day, all day. So that was something I had to
Yeah. Now a lot of us do.
I had
But
to
yeah,
work
it's
through.
normal.
Right.
It is not.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just I didn't understand that it was normal for people to tell themselves like, oh gosh, girl, you look good today. Or, you know, like you did that really well. Like I have to literally, like, I'll say things out loud like, oh, that was awful, Megan. And I'm like, no, stop it. You know, like I have to verbally tell myself, stop. It's okay. It's okay. You can feel accomplished. It's okay to feel like kind of like a little kid right now. And, you know, it's okay to have feelings that you thought weren't okay to have. You can be fine and love yourself. You can do this. You know, I really do have to walk myself through out loud and tell myself I'm worthy, because if I don't, then things just get really bad and I go into a really bad depression and life becomes pretty miserable for me.
Yes.
That's just, you know, I've got the depression and some other mental health issues that I have to deal with on a daily basis on top of my addiction. And, you know, and for me, those are, they're inclusive together. Like they overlap with one another, but I have to deal with them in different ways. You know, my program of recovery is not going to cover my mental health. It's just not, it never has and it never will. But it's definitely something I need for my sobriety and for some of my mental health. But there are definitely other things that I need to take care of that with.
Right. It's
and that's where I went wrong before.
Right. It's almost like our recovery puts us in a position where we can deal, whether it's with our mental health or, you know, so, but yeah, you're right. So they are intertwined, but they're also completely separate and have to be taken care of in separate ways. So yeah, it is hard because life, again, isn't stopping, you know. It's like I have to work on my recovery and my mental health. That's nice. The bills are due, you know, like it's not changing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I can take that hour out of my day, which I do every other Wednesday. I have therapy, right? So I take that hour out of my day to talk to my therapist, and I really enjoy talking to her. And you know, for me, I guess because like I'm not dumb. You know, I grew up and I understand things pretty well, and I consider myself smart. So with that comes along ego. You know, and I tell myself, what is this person going to tell me that somebody already has not told me in my 5-6 years of being in recovery, being in therapy and all of this? What is this person going to tell me? And every time I communicate with her, there's something new that she's like, hey, did you look at it from this way? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is why we talk every day. I need to tell, you know, I need that accountability piece, because I'm not the smartest person in the world by any means. But like this weird ego thing inside of me tells me like, no, you're smarter than this. You don't need this. Or I don't know if it's my addiction, whatever that little thing in my head is telling me that wants me to relapse, I guess.
Right.
But it's so weird to me to like have that ego, you know, but also have no self-worth. Like where it's just a weird concept to me.
What have the biggest egos and the lowest self-esteem. It is so strange.
Right. What is that? The inferiority and superiority complex.
Mm-hmm. Something like yeah, exactly. Exactly. It is so wild. It is so
that
wild.
one.
So how much clean time do you have right now?
2.5 years.
That's fantastic.
Right. My sobriety date is July 20th of 2018.
Nice. Yeah.
Right.
Well done.
Thank you.
I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah.
It really is.
I try. I mean, I don't pay as close attention to it this time around. When I was sober before, it was like, oh my gosh, I got another day. Like I need to really tell people about this. But this time it's like I have, you know, 2.5 years, which is challenging with the drug I was using, right? It's just challenging to be alive, just to be alive. The fact that I'm here is a miracle, right? I just don't, I guess I'm scared. I have fear. I have fear to let my ego get the better of me and go back to what I did.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because I've done it before. I thought, okay, so I'm working at the courthouse, and here's the thing that really got me when I was working there. I used to work in Mesa, Arizona, and that's where my recovery was that time around. And that's where I knew people from the rooms. And so, of course, I knew a lot of people that walked into that courtroom or into the courthouse, right? So at least once a week, I would see people I knew. And I even had somebody who blew my anonymity when I was there.
Oh, man.
Like bad, you know, and it really started to get to me. And I was just like, I don't know. I guess I had like a chip on my shoulder or something about it. So I just didn't go back anymore. I'm like, I don't need this. Like, look at me. I've got a decent job. I'm doing this. Like, I'm fine. I really thought I was okay.
Yeah, that's the dangerous part is we get some recovery in. You know, it's the same thing with like mental health sometimes, because I have mental health issues, you know, and people take their medication and they think, oh, I feel better. I don't need this medication anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel better because you're taking your medication.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm that person.
Exactly the same. Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah, I'm feeling better. I don't need to go anymore. Wait, no. Yeah. Yeah. But you know, Megan, thank you so much for just being willing to come on here and share your story. You know, I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you letting me share it.
Oh, no problem. I think it's great that, you know, you've got 2 years under your belt. That is a foundation to build on. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And I think a lot of moms are going to watch this and go, holy crap, you know, she's telling my story.
I hope so. I hope there's more moms out there who are willing to talk about this. You know, it's a very taboo topic to talk about being a drug addict and also being a mom at the same time. You know, I'm kind of damned if I do, damned if I don't. Like if I just left my kids, then it would have been like you abandoned them. And because I was with my kids, it's like you drug them through all of this. So I wasn't going to win either way. And I made the choice to have my children. So I hope there's more moms that don't have to feel that shame. You know, because they're not the only ones. They're definitely not the only ones that have done this.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you so much. That's going to do it for us for this episode of The Recovery Scene. Thanks everybody for watching. And remember, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.